Ray. What do you want to do tonight?
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
This audio presentation of The Magic of the Mind, How to Do What You Want with Your Life by Louise Burleigh is brought to you by audioenlightenment.com. Copyright 2013, all rights reserved. I dedicate this work to my beloved son, Neville. Experience is the mirror of the mind. If your thought is desirable, joyfully accept its presence. If not, reverse or abandon it. Every thought has its like consequence. Destiny is self-created, thought by thought. Preface. Greetings, dear reader. Ralph Waldo Emerson, author, lecturer, poet, and transcendentalist, was one of the greatest influences on American thought. Among his idealistic words of wisdom was this concept: the only gift is a portion of thyself. In this light I offer you the best and kindest of my thoughts and hope to be admitted into the inner sanctuary of your own. I studied the creative process from among the wisest minds of whom there is any record. This enabled me to fulfill all my goals. Now I am committed to sharing this knowledge in order that you too may benefit from their wisdom. What more could we ask, dear fellow wayfarer, than open our mind to one another, unless perhaps wonder should smile upon my efforts and you should also accept my love. Louise Burleigh. Note: important, to be successful, review this page daily. Is your desire morally justified? Set aside a minimum of 15 to 30 minutes the first thing after waking and the last at night to create and fulfill your desire. Don't try and make it happen. Your desire will materialize as soon as you have embodied and rehearsed it until it has sufficient energy to move from imagination to the outer world of your experience. 1. Happily assume that fulfillment is present. 2. Silently rehearse in happy imagination that which would naturally follow its presence. Do in your mind that which you would be doing had it already occurred. 3. Silently tell everyone close to you about its ideal condition. 4. During free moments, silently and joyfully act out in your mind its natural consequence. Feel and wear your new self-image. Chapter 1. The Creative Process. Quote, "Today's dream is tomorrow's reality." William Shakespeare. I invite you to come with me, if you will, and let us explore together the creative nature of our mind. In the subtleties of universal law lie the principles and process of creation, and we, multiple expressions of a single reality, are immersed in an infinite ocean of dynamic energy that awaits our command. Does it not follow that after survival, our first priority should be to learn the nature of the laws that govern our lives? And where better to begin than in our mind? Actually, these laws and processes have been known since ancient times, but only to a few. For thousands of years, long preceding recorded history, the wisest men of the world taught their small groups of followers that which our modern science has learned only in recent times: that the creative process is activated by our beliefs, assumptions, and self-identification, as well as imaginations in its various aspects, such as fantasy and daydreams. Shakespeare revealed this insight in his observation, "Imagination bodies forth the form of things." He knew that all forms and all things are brought into being through this natural and magical process he utilized so extensively, imagination. "Whatsoever things you desire, believe you have received them, and they shall be yours," instructs a biblical passage. An ancient Chinese sage, whose name is lost in antiquity, taught, "Daydream in the ultimate you desire to obtain." And his revered countryman, the humble Lao Tzu, distilled his thoughts even further in a succinct advice: "The best way to do is to be." Centuries later and across the world, Meister Eckhart, the German mystical theologian, expressed the same insight: "Leave off doing that you may be." In other words, we should choose our role in life and act it out in our mind until it becomes established in the outer world. Whether it is a single desire or a destiny, we are advised to accept it as present in the here and now. This was well stated by the watchword of the late 1960s, "Be there." The late Carl Jung, world-famous Swiss psychologist, explained, "Without the play of fantasy, no creation has ever come into being." The creative process has been long and well understood, but only by a few. Some 500 years BC, the great East Indian Buddha taught, "What we are is a result of all that we have thought." Across the world in the 19th century, English literary figure William Henley stated a similar human potential. "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." But, dear reader, this mastery cannot occur without our knowledge of its process. Though it is seldom realized, we are innately endowed with all the necessary faculties for becoming true masters of our life and destiny. So please think of it, dear friend. What would most enrich your life? What would make you the happiest and benefit all whom it would affect? If it is in harmony with the natural order of life and you wish it, I would be honored to help you to attain it, and stay by your side if you like every step of the way. Let us observe together this magical process which we are richly empowered. It is composed of 3 simple elements. 1. An idea or definition. 2. Assumption. And 3. Imaginal experience. The laws of the mind are as precise and dependable as those of mathematics or gravity. So until each aspect of this governing law is met, there can be no fulfillment of our desire. As taught by the wisest of men, belief is surely the greatest activator of the creative process. But in the matter of the unrealized desire, belief does not merely happen. It does not initiate itself. It must grow and develop from the roots of assumption. So how, dear friend, do we invoke belief? By a discipline of repeated practice, rehearsing the happy results and consequences of our desires as though it were already fulfilled. Do in your imagination that which you would be doing were it already realized. Embody the joy which would naturally accompany its presence by sustaining this daily practice. Its energy pattern, its mental blueprint, if you will, becomes increasingly energized until it is well established, until it becomes a strongly imprinted subconscious habit. At this point, it is the nature of the process to reflect or project our blueprint from its subjective inner domain to the objective outer world of our experience. In this daily repetition, we become so familiar with the results that we are enabled to believe. The biblical teaching of whatsoever you desire, believe that you have received, also implies that if we believe in something as if having already occurred, we would naturally think and act accordingly, that we would be faithful to our belief. Is it not clear that if we are following the instructions as given, we cannot continue to pray and ask for it, but rather follow through in the silence of our mind with that which would be its natural consequence? Unlike the delusion of our senses, creation does not and cannot possibly occur in the outside world. Creation is always from the subjective to the objective. Our sight misleads us into believing that some great structure is being created in the outer world of our perception, yet we know that it was first built in the mind. That which we observe is the follow-through. There is no other way. Creation is subjective cause. The finished product is objective effect. Someone noted amusingly that there are 3 kinds of people: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who have no idea what happened. Actually, we all belong to the first group, those who make things happen. But with an important difference, we have made our present condition happen, some of which we may have preferred not to occur. Life does not fulfill our wishes, it fulfills our dominant thought patterns. So think of it, dear friend, is there something important missing in your life? Is there something which needs to be resolved? Is it a matter of relationship, the right job or career? Even if you do not know what you want, in the practice of disciplined silence, you can find the ideal vocation or path for which you are best suited and which you can make a meaningful contribution to life. By rehearsing a scene in which you silently celebrate your ideal occupation and engage in imaginary conversations to this effect, your subconscious will not only find and reflect it in your conscious mind, but it will be perfect for you in every way. Be sure to refer to it always as ultimately perfect and ideal. Please think of your own desire and come with me, if you will, into my secret dreams and observe the creative process in action. I was in love with the world of fine art and desired to work effectively in this field. I wanted to travel broadly on the largest ships and planes, visit the greatest cities and wonders of the world. I was eager to see the many famous museums and enjoy the original and the great masterpieces that I had studied. Yet among all these pleasures something seemed to be missing. Not knowing exactly what, I called it in my undefined wonder. Totally ignorant of the laws of the mind, I merely wished and hoped, and my desires remained unfulfilled. Finally, I began to look for the reason and learned that wishing and hoping have no power of fulfillment. At last I learned of the creative process of the mind and committed myself to a nightly practice of constructive new mental habits. In imagination, I worked joyfully and effectively in the field of fine art. In my mind, I did all that I assumed I would be doing were it already realized. I fantasized that my room was a lovely private stateroom aboard ship where I traveled far and wide. In imagination, I smelled the salt air over the ocean, saw and heard the white seagulls flying overhead. In my mind, I met lovely people, dined with several charming men, promenaded on deck with the ship's officers, and danced the night away across the Atlantic. In Europe, I thrilled at the famous museums and enjoyed a variety of social activities, and I finished each dream rehearsal silently celebrating my undefined wonder. And so vividly and happily did I embody all the sensations and tones of reality that after only 3 weeks of faithful nightly practice, and without a word to anyone or any outward effort whatever, suddenly I was offered an elegant position in the field of fine art. And I worked with a collection of Renaissance masters, including Rembrandt and Leonardo da Vinci. Then one day my employer came to me and announced that something very important was about to occur in the field of great paintings, and he needed to send me to Europe for 5 weeks, all expenses paid. Imagine my joy. Soon I was actually in my lovely private stateroom, traveling first class and round trip on the 2 largest ships afloat. Everything was a delight. The dining room steward, with no knowledge of my creative dream rehearsals, actually seated with me with 3 charming gentlemen, 2 of whom owned important New York art galleries, and the third of whom was an Italian movie producer returning home from Hollywood. 2 of the ship's officers, in their impeccable white uniforms, unaware that I had been walking with them in my dreams, invited me for a daily promenade on the deck. One of them invited me on a tour of the ship, which included descending into the hold of narrow vertical ladders to see the mysterious engine room with its enormous motors that empowered this majestic floating city. It was a mind-expanding and fascinating to see, especially with such a handsome and attentive officer as my guide. They taught me to say ship, not boat, and make U-turns, Navy style. The evenings were great fun, and with several gallant partners, I danced all across the Atlantic. Arriving in Paris in the evening, I was lavishly wined and dined in one of the city's most famous restaurants, where course after course of gourmet masterpieces seemed never-ending. The following day, I was invited to a private sit-down luncheon for 14. Knowing that it was to be another sumptuous affair of the table, my stomach protested 2 such extravagances in succession. So I tried to decline, but my gracious host refused to accept my regret, and I attended unwillingly. It is important to note that after we have rehearsed a mental pattern until it is well established and highly energized, it will objectify in our experience unless we choose to revise it. In imaginal experience, I had firmly recorded in my subconscious some undefined wonder that I assumed had already occurred during my 5-week trip. In keeping with the dependable laws and powers of cause and effect, my subconscious mind found the means to manifest this wonder. So even against my wishes, I was caused to attend the luncheon where the wonder did in fact occur, but more of this later. Among the many pleasures of my trip was seeing the highlights of Paris, London, Rome, as well as the storybook city of Venice, Marseille, and the Isle of Capri. Fulfilling the main purpose of my trip, I strolled leisurely through the famous museums, savoring many of my favorite works of art. I assure you that every detail I rehearsed in the inner domain of causes was experienced in the outer world of effects. And the continued practice of my waking dream resulting in some 50 deluxe trips from the Far East to the Far West, as well as much more important things, an ideal marriage, our fine son Neville, and a beautiful and enriching life together. Yes, experience is the mirror of the mind, and our dominant thought patterns are the blueprints of tomorrow. Quote, "We live as we dream." Joseph Conrad, end of chapter.